up React Native friends and welcome to an epic new tutorial. Today we will combine some of your most favorite technologies to build our own AI voice recording application with React Native. If you want to check out the code, the link is right below this video so you can follow along, bring in some pieces or directly run it on your device. But make sure to check out the video so you understand how to set up everything, because we're gonna use React Native, we're gonna use Expo to record audio, we're gonna use API routes, we're gonna use OpenAI and the Whisper API, and we're gonna also use Firebase to store our data, a combination of awesome tools. Speaking of awesome tools, the sponsor of today's video is More Than Awesome, and they just announced a brand new feature for React Native. I'm a big fan of PostHog myself and use it for galaxies.dev for all of our statistics and tracking and analytics, and you can think of PostHog like an all-in-one suite of product and data tools like analytics, feature flags, and the new one, session replays for React Native. Three things about this are especially epic. Number one, PostHog is ridiculously cheap. Number two, it's super easy to set up the SDK. And number three, you will learn all about how to use it in this video. Make sure to use the link below this video to check out PostHog, tell them I sent you, and now let's build our AI-powered voice recorder. Alright, let's get started with our application. I actually ran a couple of commands already because they're taking some time, so you can start as well by first creating a new app using create Expo app, call your app whatever you prefer. Then we install a bunch of dependencies. So we will install Firebase to later save and store data. We're going to use Expo AV for audio recording. We're going to use the Expo Dev client because it just makes our life a bit easier. And then we're going to set up a PostHog for Expo. So the first line is the general installation for PostHog. It just requires the file system, Expo application, device localization. Most of that might actually be already installed in your application, but that was the string from PostHog. So I wanted to install it, and then we can install the new React Native session replay. This might change actually in the future if it's becoming like part of the actual PostHog React Native package, but when I gave it a try, I had to install this separate package. Now, this is all for tracking and for checking out a pretty cool session replay feature. Then we also need the OpenAI package, which we will use for the Whisper API. And then I wanted to add a little toast notification, so we installed Sonar Native and React Native SVG, which is a dependency for it. And finally, you can wrap it up by running npx expo prebuild. So then you are at the same spot as I am, because now you can just run npx expo run iOS or npx expo run Android. So you can only run on iOS if you are on a Mac. Cool. As always, you can also find the code linked below this video to the GitHub repository in case you want to copy this over. Now, with all of that in place, let's check out our application. I just noticed that we still got the default Expo template, and I'm pretty sure I want to get rid of that. So let's run npm run reset project. That should remove a bunch of files, so we're only left with layout and index. I will actually remove most of the folders here to make our life a bit easier. And then we can begin in our index file, because the run command here might take a couple of minutes more. Maybe we can also start in our layout and making sure that our index page looks good. So let's define some options here. That's a great start. First code completion, and it's not working. Let's set the title here to "This is my voice recorder." Okay, hit save, and then we have the first big change. Now, in the index page, what we want to do is we want to present a list of nodes, but we don't really have that stuff yet. All of that is happening once we connect to Firebase. For the moment, let's focus on the recording. So to use the recording, we're going to bring in the Expo AV package. Did I show you the Expo package? No, I didn't. So here it is. This is the Expo AV package. And while I'm browsing this, I noticed a couple of things, because this requires some permissions. And because we're using a pre-build, we definitely have to take care of that. So head over to your app.json and find the block where it says plugins. So down here, we want to put in the Expo AV package and the microphone permission for our product. I'm pretty sure at this point I can already do a new npx expo pre-build Otherwise, it might not take over my changes. And then we can run our app again on our preferred platform. Good. So with that in place, let's continue, because we can already write some code before the app shows up. We want to capture using useState if we currently have an ongoing audio recording. I would actually say it is, and we could use undefined here, or could use it like it is. We definitely need the router to do some manual routing here in our application. And we might also need the bottom distance, because I want to have like a fixed button at the bottom. And then the React Native save area context is always helpful. Now, I also forgot to bring in the style sheet. Oh no, I didn't create that view, so that's why there's no style sheet. That makes sense. So that means I want to bring in style sheet up here from React Native, and just adding a bit more separation here. So we can then change this to styles container, and we can already create our functionality. So we need a start recording function. Okay, this is going to be an async function, and then we of course have something to stop the recording, which might look like this. As I said, we will later render the items. That is still a to-do here. But what we can do for the moment is we can present our button down here. So I want to call this and probably apply some styles here. We can use start recording, stop recording. If I want to make this a bit nicer, I would use probably a touchable opacity instead. So let's use a touchable opacity from React Native instead. And on press, I will start my recording. Please also add all the imports. Can you add just the import? Oh, it's already imported. I'm sorry about that. I just forgot to close this. Okay. Meanwhile, this is taking some time. No problem. So let's put some styling out for our button container. I will actually place this absolute, and I want to call this to align itself in the center. Oh, what is this? I don't want the button yet. Also, oh yeah, we want that. We can already hook this up, no problem. I also want to make this conditional. So we want to check if we are recording, or if there's an ongoing recording, we want to stop it, and otherwise I would start it. And because we can't really work on the UI yet, oh, we actually can. In this second, we can. Nice. That's a nice timing here. So let's see, hopefully this actually loads. Yeah, we're on the dev client, that looks good. We see voice recorder and we see our button down here. That's a good start actually. So I brought in a bit of styling in my previous code, which looked like this. So we have a recording button, which is either active or inactive and has a specific size. So we can now replace this here with our improved version, and also bring in the Ionicons from the Expo Vector Ionicons package. So now we have this button down here. We have the button container. We're using the bottom distance. Actually, we can make this a bit shorter. And then we got the styling. So we're using the record button, and then we add some conditional styling here. And we have a conditional icon as well. Good. Now let's talk about the recording capabilities. This is pretty cool. So we can now replace this in here, and first of all wrap this in a try catch. I would just do this. It's a bit safer, and because during debugging you probably encounter some problems. The first thing you want to do is you want to grab some permissions, and you want to actually check this. So let's get the result of this request permission async call, and then only if our permission status is granted, we can lock this out. You can also do like, if it is not granted, then we do a little alert. And actually in that case we should return, because in that case we can't really do anything. Now the important part happens here. If we call audio set audio mode async, this is the preparation for our recording, and this is important for iOS. And we can then get the current recording by calling await audio.recording create async, and you can now pass in some recording options. This is actually wrong. This should be recording options presets dot high quality, or you can use other ones. Let's see. I can't dive into that. That's strange. But there are different recording. Okay, here is it, low quality or high quality. We will just go with high quality, and then I will set this to my recording. Now, when we hit stop recording, we're gonna do a couple of things. We want to get a URI to our recording, and we want to pass it to another details page. So maybe let's create that page right now. I will call that one new recording.tsx. Okay, this is my page. And on that page, on the new recording page, I want to get the URI. So we can already do this right here. We do this using use local search params from Expo Router. And I want to use query params. So this is going to be optional in the query params because I don't really want to have like this full string of a URI in like in the URL of the navigation. So let's keep it like this. Okay, with that in place, we can do it. Maybe let's quickly define a little stack entry here. So let's do a new one for new recording. Okay, it looks pretty good. I want to make sure that this has the presentation modal. So on iOS, it uses the cool modal overlay styling. And we probably also need a button to go back from that page. How do we make that one? Let's use the Ionicons again. Name, close, size, whatever, and probably gonna attach the functionality in a second. Cool. So we are pretty well on our way. At this point, if we stop the recording, we first need to check a couple of things. So let's go ahead. If we are not recording, let's just return. So if we don't have a recording, well, this whole stuff we want to do, it doesn't work. Now we can also get rid of the console log and instead call recording.stop and unload async. This stops the recording of our audio file. And we can now grab the URI by saying recording get URI. I can lock this out as well. And I want to set my recording here back to, I don't know, undefined or null, whatever works for TypeScript. So if at this point we do have our URI for the recording, I want to call the Expo Router and I want to push to that new page. And as I said, I want to use it as query param. So I don't want to use it directly as part of the URL. I think that looks ugly. I want to use it like this, and for safety reasons I want to call encode URI component so we're not messing up anything here. All right, in theory this could work. Let's give okay, I need to allow this. Yeah, the recording is starting. Okay, we finished it. And we have actually a file. So you could now go ahead and simply copy over your path and open that up. So you can say open this one, or you could just like open that folder. That might be a bit easier. So if I take a look here, this is my folder and there's actually the recording. So I can play this, but okay, maybe you heard this. I will do this a bit louder. Yeah, the recording is starting. Okay, that probably got picked up by the microphone. So this is the file we just recorded. That in itself is pretty cool. Like, we just wrote a couple of lines for like recording, starting the recording and creating it to a file using the Expo AV package. I think that package is really super easy to use and I definitely like using it. Now, what we're gonna do next on top of this is a bit more complicated because on our new recording page, we got that URI. And the whole idea of our application is to capture audio, send it to the Whisper API, get a transcript, and then store it in Firebase. So we now need to use this URI, this local file, and get it somehow to OpenAI in a secure way. Usually you would have to set up now your own proxy server to communicate with OpenAI in a safe way. However, because we got API routes, we can do this in here. So I can add a folder API. That actually isn't too important, but I will call this one speech to text plus API, and that part is important, .ts. So this is going to be my cloud function. And we already added OpenAI in the beginning, so I can now just simply import it. Additionally, we need our OpenAI key. So I will bring in my own environment file here. And the environment file will basically look like this. We're going to talk about the other two parameters later. For the moment, you only need OpenAI API key. And important, don't put Expo public in front of this, or it might end up in your bundle. Because if it is Expo public, it will be bundled with your application. If it not, it is treated like a server environment. So in my file, and I'm pretty sure that at this point I have to reload. Very sure. And Expo using API routes requires the web output to set to server in the app.json. Yeah, that means we anyway have to restart. So if you want to use the API routes, you want to make this one here an array entry. And the second param here will have something like origin. This is later important. So in my case, I will just set it to galaxies because I'm not deploying this application right now. However, if you later deploy your API routes to Vercel, Netlify or somewhere, you're gonna have to use that endpoint as your origin because we're making relative requests from our application later, and this is like treating it as the origin. But we also need to go to the web output and set this one. Actually, do we have to? It requires the web output to be set to server in the project. I'm not sure if this is actually really the case. I will do it, but I'm not sure if we have to, honestly. Okay, I think it's not picking up my new environment, so I will just restart this. And meanwhile, we can talk about our API route. So first, I want to grab my API key in here, and I want to make sure if it's not in there, I just want to throw an error. Then we can create our Expo API function. So let's call this function post. This is going to get a request, and since somewhere in Expo is using the default request objects here. Okay, now I don't want to send the URI to the server. This is where it gets a tiny bit complicated because what I want to send to the server is actually a form data object with a blob. Because if you inspect the OpenAI, no, this is already this one here. If you inspect the API, you're gonna see that it expects actually a file. So this is what we basically need to run in our application, okay? So in order to achieve something like this, we don't really want to read this. So you could send a base64 and then do transformation and stuff, but I rather want to send the real deal to this endpoint already. So we're gonna do it with some form data. Additionally, let's put this also in a little try catch block. So you're going like this. So we will access the form data using await request.form data, and then I will get my file, which we will supply as file here. Then what is here going on? Oh yeah, we still need to create an OpenAI instance. We can do this with new OpenAI. And then I can get the actual response here. So let's call this response await OpenAI audio transcriptions create. What's this? Using my own file actually. And then we're gonna use the model Whisper 1. That is absolutely correct. Now I want to return a new response. I want to turn response JSON the text of this or otherwise an error. And that is actually everything we need for our cloud function in here, really. This is hopefully everything we need. So let's see how we can apply this. In the new recording page, we got the URI, which is basically a path to our file. When we enter that page, let's directly do this in a use effect block. If I don't have a URI, I want to do something else. And yeah, this is pretty much accurate, but I want to call this const handle transcribe. And I want to call this in the beginning. So when we enter that page, we want to make a request to API/speech to text. This should be our endpoint up here correctly. I want to use the method post, absolutely, but we also want to do something else. So we need some more stuff in here. So let's do this. Let's do this slowly. So first we need to also check if we are loading. So we can like disable our UI and stuff, the usual things you do when you do a loading. And then we need our router. So let's use the router from Expo. And we also need the actual transcription. We're gonna set this to an empty string in the beginning. Now, in here, I want to start by set is loading true, and actually we can now use the toast package. Did we actually install that? Let's try. Yeah, so toast from Sonar Native. I recently discovered that package, and for whatever random reason, I wanted to include it today because I was always looking for a reason to use it. So it looks really cool. Has sitting around 400 stars. So an opinionated toast component port of the Sonar library, and I think it looks really, really cool, and it is quite easy to use. So we already installed the dependencies in the beginning. The only thing we need is in our layout, we're gonna have to place an entry here. So we're gonna wrap all of this with the gesture handler root view. Okay, this is required because the toast is using gestures as well. Okay, so import gesture handler root, and then gonna place the toaster in here. Actually, toaster means toaster, what you think in Germany. I don't know if it's the same in English. Quick random fact. So we got the toaster, and with that we should be able to call something like toast.loading. So that would render a little loading overlay. However, nothing too special. We might still disable our UI. And then I want to try and make my call. And first I'm gonna get or create a new form data object, and I want to append my file now. So we have to use file. Remember, we are looking for file in the API function. I will use the URI name. Actually doesn't matter too much, but I want to use M4A at least because that's right now for iOS. So we might be. Oh yeah, this is an interesting TypeScript one. Let's create this up front, and you're gonna laugh probably. So let's call this audio data. Okay, and usually you would think, okay, I can just append it like this, but it's not working like this. So what we want to do instead, you could say as blob. Oh, that's still not working. So you can say as unknown as blob, and this is absolutely not great TypeScript. I understand this, but this is the only way I figured out how to use it. And trust me, it actually works. So I'm sorry for that part. Okay. Now, additionally, I will now use the body form data. And if you use form data like this in your body, you should also set the according headers, which are content type multi-part form data. And once we got this, we can also add a little then block to directly convert the response to JSON. Now, if we get a response, I will actually put out a little log here. So let's do a log. This is my response. And then I will set my transcription text to response.text. And then I can call toast dismiss. Actually, I want to do toast dismiss when we're really definitely done. So in the finally block, I will set by is loading false and toast dismiss. So at this point, chances are that our application works and we see something. Let's try. This is my first recording test. Okay, I think we are good. I don't know what's, oh no, what is this here? I wanted to show you this. Let's try it again. Is it still working? So this is my URI, and here's the response I got, which is actually the response from OpenAI. So to get to this point, it took me a couple of hours figuring out how to send it in the right way to my API endpoint. I hope for you it took like 5 minutes and we're into this 20 minutes. So I really hope you already got a lot of benefit out of this. This is basically why I do this. Like, it takes me 8 hours and I try to make it easy for you so you can do it in 8 minutes. Okay. By the way, if you like that stuff, check out Galaxies, where I do more of these cool things for our members and our courses. Now, we are definitely not finished. We're 50% finished because there's still a lot of things that we want to do. First of all, we probably want to have a little view down here that actually looks like something. And because I know creating a view can be really boring, I will bring in some parts. And we later are gonna better talk about the whole concept and some other things, because again, the UI part here is really the most boring piece of this tutorial. Let's add a text input. Let's add a touchable opacity. Please add this from React Native. And then you can already define a handle save function. So handle save needs to be implemented. Okay, we got the cool toast up here, by the way. We are in the modal. We seem to not set my result. Maybe my result was bad. But overall, if we have our transcription here, we can use it for the text input value transcription. Okay, yeah, let's try again. Oh, that button doesn't have an... I trolled myself once again. I knew it. So go to your top layout, use the Expo Router, bring it in, and then when you have the ionicons, let's add onPress router.back. Okay. Let's try another recording. Okay, we probably messed up something. That can happen. That can absolutely happen. Let's try again. Another try, another day. Okay, here we go. I currently don't really get the result in here. So we see stop recording, but we don't see this one down here. Maybe there might be a problem with my response. So how does my response actually look from my API route? Yeah, that's a problem. Let's return it as text and then response text. And I'm well aware that now I might have to restart the whole fun again. Let's try if it works. Please let it work without restart. Okay. Okay, cool. I really like this. My AI recorder is really working pretty well at this point. So we have the UI, we have a button to save it. Now, where do we save it? Of course, in a cool cloud Firestore. And for this, I picked Firebase. So you can just go to your Firebase Cloud Console, create a new project, default settings, and then here click Add App, and you're gonna select Web. Just put in web and you get a configuration object. If you haven't seen this, you can also go back into your project settings and it will show you your Firebase config down here. Now, the way to use Firebase with our application is actually quite easy. Let's give this a bit more space. I would recommend we do a new folder and call this utils. And within, I want to place my Firebase config.ts. This is my Firebase config. So bring in your object here. And then I recommend down here you export the things that you need from the Firebase SDK. So we always need the app here. We need the Firestore database. You could also get Fire storage. We will not use authentication. I will show you a little video in the end about that topic. So no authentication today. On top of that, I went into my Firestore database and clicked Get Started, and I used the default testing rules. So that means no authentication is required at the moment to use this Firebase instance. We are also only using the Firebase JavaScript SDK. However, that is totally enough. If you just want to use authentication, Firestore, real-time database, and storage, really, all you have to do is the JavaScript SDK. I have another video where I also cover the authentication topic on how to use the native package, but there's absolutely no problem in using the JavaScript SDK here at this point. So with that in place, I have my recording, I have my handle save up here, and in my handle save, I now want to write my result to Firebase. So my new recording, let's go ahead here. I will call add doc. I hope this brings in the import. This requires our reference, so that should be my Firestore DB. And then we need the collection. So I want to add, oh yeah, I need to first wrap this in the actual collection call. Yeah, I'm a bit rusty here. So that should be Firestore DB and my node collection. Exactly. Please bring in those imports in this one as well. And then we can put in the transcription, and I also want to save a preview of it. So if the transcription is longer than 40 characters, I want to slice it and add 3 dots. Otherwise, it would be the full transcription. And for the creation date, I recommend you use the server timestamp from Firestore. That makes it a bit better. And once we're done here, let's just call router.dismiss all. Dismiss all. And then we should have stored this to Firebase. Let's see. So I'm here. I will press save transcription. And right here in my Firestore database, I should see a new document. Please let it work without restart. So we went from speech to file to API endpoint to Whisper API to reply to Firebase. And at this point, we've done really a couple of things, really a lot. And I think before we continue, this is a great place to also introduce the last final concept of today, which is also the sponsor of today. So the sponsor of this video is PostHog. And I told you before that I'm personally using PostHog, for example, for Galaxies and all my metrics and tracking and analytics and making decisions about the funnels. And I watched a couple of session replays, which is really a pretty epic feature because it shows me how people use Galaxies. And exactly this feature is now also available for React Native, and we just have to try it. So if you haven't created your PostHog account, just sign up. You can sign in with GitHub completely for free or Google. What you want to do is we actually, as I said, installed the packages already in the beginning. So we should find them in my package.json. And again, I had to install this additional package that might not be required anymore in the future. Now, the way to use this is to go to our top layout file. It's really super easy to include this in our application. And I want to bring in the PostHog provider. And I also want to do the same logic like we did before for our API keys. So I want to bring this in from my process environment. I want to use the PostHog API key in the host. I'm going to show you how to get it in a second. And then we've wrapped this around our application. I will just put it in here and that should be fine. So PostHog provider needs an API key and the host. And then we're going to put this closing PostHog provider tag around the stack. So everything in my app is now wrapped by this. You can also specify debug true if you want to get started. And especially I want to supply an options object here. So for host, I want to put in my host. This is for the moment everything you need. So if I now use my application, this should actually show up under activity here. So if I record something and then move to the next screen, this might actually be tracked unless, let's see. Let's do a little reload. But I can already see from my logs here, because we turned on debugging, that it's actually posting event screen, library PostHog, new recording. And because it said new recording, that looks like, do we have a session replay? No, not yet. So I told you if you want to configure PostHog in your React Native application, again, you need to fill out the details here in your .env file. And in my case, I had to go to settings And here you should find your project API key. So that's the public key you can use. And then at some point, so my region is EU Cloud, which I can also see somewhere up here. So this is my API host. In many cases for you, this might be US, okay? So be aware of that. You might have to use US instead for the URL. But simply bring that over as the second value here. So I've wrapped this around my app. We see the debugging events, but we haven't turned on session replay. So if we want to enable this, simply go ahead with enable session replay true. And if you feel fancy, I want to customize this a bit more. There are two things. So first, in your settings, you want to check that actually record user sessions under session replay is enabled. So here under settings, session replay, this needs to be enabled. Once this is enabled and you have enabled session replay here, it should work, but you can also specify an additional configuration. Now, all of this is the default setting, but I just want to put it here so you know what you can use. So for example, you can mask your text inputs, your images, you can capture the log. We have some debounds here, but especially masking the text is important with password inputs and stuff. So now, if I record something, then I move here, and then I do something, and then I save this, and then I go back to my session replay. We don't have a session yet. That's a pity. Maybe because we haven't navigated too much yet. Let's implement the rest for the moment, but I should be able to see this, right? So a few seconds ago, I definitely saw my activity, which is already pretty cool, but we should also be able to see our recordings. Now, as I said, I haven't been navigating a lot in here. I just barely clicked on like 2 things in here. So probably we want to add some more navigation, and then we check back in our session replays. So we have data in Firebase. We are able to record and save it. Now let's also display it. To display the data, we will add another component, new folder components, so a reusable component, and I want to call this one list item.tsx. Okay, we want to really make this clean. This should have a clean interface. To every list item, we pass the ID, the preview, and the created ad from our list item props, and then I would render this somehow in here. We're going to talk about that in a second. Let's get back to the index, because in our index page, we need to load the data, all right? So let's see. Let's set up a new use effect block. And we're just gonna load the data from our collection. Now, this is not entirely what I wanna do, so let's do this slowly together. We're gonna first of all grab our nodes collection. We're gonna use the collection function here, and actually a bunch of other ones as well. So collection, Firestore database, my node collection. We wanna do this in an unsubscribe, so then we can clean up after ourselves in here. And we also want to do a little query. So let's do the query here. We can use the query function if I have no typo inside, query, and use it on my nodes collection. And I want to use order by. I want to use created ad in a descending way. Okay, this is my query. With that, I can now use onSnapshot, which is always called when the data in Firebase changes. I use my query and I get back the snapshot. And within the snapshot, I want to make sure that I create an array of these elements and I include the ID. So this has always been a problem because the ID is usually in Firebase a level above, so you kind of manually need to include it in the reply. And then we of course need some state here for my nodes. And I can set this to my nodes. Okay, at this point, I could also put in a little log, and we should see we're getting back some data from Firebase, exactly to the ID, created, preview, and the transcription. Nice. This works pretty good so far. We haven't encountered like really huge problems. I'm not used to this in my videos. This has been too easy. Something like major is going to happen. Anyway, when we had our to-do, let's replace this now with a flat list component. By the way, if you want to learn more about lists, check out our video I recently did on this channel about how you should not use flat list. But anyway, you can use it for simple cases like this. That should absolutely work. Okay, render item. We can now reuse my list item that we just created. We pass in the ID, preview, created, and yeah, more isn't really required. And so, we see our data. Let's input also an item separator component. I will call this one height, style sheet, hairline width, and I will give it the background color, I don't know, some sort of gray. Let's use CCC. Okay, item separator component. Yeah, we do have a little separator here actually. I don't want to go into the details of the list item because that is absolutely just playing around with styling. So instead, my recommendation, check out the repository below, which you should do anyway. And then you can use this beautiful component here, which has some additional styling. Why does it look like this? Let me check in Firebase. Created at... let's see. Where are we going wrong here? Why is my created ad looking so strange? This is definitely not how it's supposed to look. Oh yeah, I wanted to transform this in my index page up front. So in our index page where we pass the created ad, let's call this one with toDate. Okay, if you transform the server timestamp to a date, it actually renders as something nice. Now, you notice that something is missing. We can't go into the details page. And I think the video is probably already long enough, but I still want to show you that details page. So as a quick additional idea of what you can do, and in the meantime, I will check if we had some recordings here. Actually, we do. It finally came in here. I love this. I love session replays, absolutely. Okay, so it's just giving me exactly what's going on in my screen. And we're gonna use this again in a second when we have more navigational events. So let's wrap it up with that ID page. I will create a page to which we can go by simply using an ID. Okay, so this is the details page of our node. So if I click on a node, what we can see in the list item, I would go to that page and use that ID. And on that page, I would simply now resolve that information. So as I said, I want to bring this page in and then inform you about what's going on. So I can go here, and on that page, I don't see anything. That's good. That's good. I'm even using the code I have prepared and it's still not working. I'm such a genius. How is that possible? A link ref goes to ID. Is this my ID? Yeah, this is absolutely my ID. What's going on in that page? I probably renamed my values in Firebase somehow. Let's check this out. If I go in here, it says transcription. Of course, I called it transcription, not text. So I'm gonna have to say transcription here instead of text. And I wonder if at some other point I messed this up as well. Probably here and no, nowhere else. Okay. All right. So let's get back to the details page. I just made this page. It had the param in here so we can access it by its ID. And on that page, we can then extract the ID. And in our use effect, we simply have a little load script to get the document from Firebase. Nothing too crazy, really. This is the standard way of adding and getting documents from Firebase. If it exists, oops, I set it to my state node here. And this state is then connected to the input field here. That means I can now update things in here. And if I press update note down here, we would call my handle update, which again just creates a reference to that specific document in Firebase and updates it, and also updates the preview. I will also use my cool toast notification library again, and the same happens for handle deletion, only this time we call delete doc. Really, that's the simplicity of Firebase. I still like how easy you can use it. Also, the view, there's really not a whole lot going on in here, so let's give this a try. Update. We see my cool update log up here, and I can now just navigate around, delete nodes, record some cool information that might also be longer. I don't know what's the limit for Whisper API, but it's definitely pretty cool. So this might take a bit longer, actually not too long. I can hit save, and I have my voice node in here. And to wrap it up, let's quickly check out our recordings page again. Do we have a new one? This is from 4 minutes ago. It probably didn't understand yet that my recording is finished. So at this point, it might flush the cache. This is still the first one. I definitely want to see my longer one. Oh, it's actually getting even better. This is the one big recording that's updated the whole time. So I can now skip around here and change my playback speed. I can also skip forward to like the interesting things happening, and I see completely all the clicks the user made in here. I can even see the network calls going on, including the ones to Firestore. So you can now make a super specific relation, like the user clicked in your application something at a specific time, and then they made a request here. So if something fails, or if you have a specific console log, it would appear in here. So absolutely check out the new session replay feature of PostHog. Again, I used it for the web all the time to improve galaxies and the behavior. And for mobile, this is just as important as it is for the web. And the integration was really like 5 minutes. And with that, we now have a fully functional voice AI recorder. You can play around with the styling, but this is pretty much 90% of all the successful apps you will see in the App Store. Alright, that's it for today's tutorial. I hope you enjoyed this build. I hope you're able to build your own AI voice recording tool now. It is really a combination of different pieces, but overall, that's how all these great apps in the App Store are built, and they're all making a lot of money. So I really hope you could benefit from this video. If you want to support me, check out the links below this video to PostHog, give that a try. Also, you can find the GitHub code below this video, and of course, check out galaxies.dev if you want to learn more about building great React Native applications with personal support on our Plus plan. And before I forget it, check out this video about Firebase authentication using the native SDK. It's pretty cool, it's also quite easy to set up, and a good continuation of today's video. I will hopefully catch you in the next one, so until then, stay subscribed and happy coding, Simon.